High five. Great.
Very nice. High five.
Hello,
Hey!
and welcome to episode 1 of High Fives and Deep Dives.
That was a high five for those of you not watching. And really, how could you be watching? Unless you got web cameras in my house, in which case, you filthy pervert.
So, it's been a minute.
Yeah, well, it's been a week. This is our very...
Yeah, that's a lot of minutes.
It's our first official... Are we calling this one the official episode?
I hope so.
The last episode we did was kind of the test, the trial run. It's the pilot episode. And we did, in fact, actually Google what pilot means in the case of, like, the pilot episode.
Well, someone else did, and then told us.
Well, yeah, I guess that's accurate. But Google provided the information, and we then received it. I don't know if we retained it, though.
No, it made sense when we read it at the time.
Yeah.
Completely gone from my brain now.
Just forgotten entirely, and I think that's because we're getting old.
But as I recall, we were on the right track.
Yeah, I think so.
Speaking of things going from your brain, this week's topic is aging.
Yeah, that is our deep dive for today, talking about aging and weighing in on our personal experiences with getting old, wrinkly, gray.
Yeah, they're not positive,
No,
I would say.
this is a negative podcast. If you're looking for high fives, well, you're going to have to rewind about 30 seconds, I think, because that's about it. The rest is just depressing.
So, I think about aging often.
Do you?
I do. I don't like to. Can't help it. When did you realise that you were aging?
23.
23. That's a random number.
It seems obscure, right? 23 was I think it's because that was the year I moved out of my parents' house, and the year I kind of like got my first quote unquote real job that wasn't an entry level job, and all of a sudden I was like chained to a desk, and reality hit, and I had bills, and all my friends were like turning 21 because they were all younger than me, and I was like, dude, I feel so old. 23.
So your realisation that you were getting old is very different to mine, because mine is purely vain. I don't know what age it happened for me. In fact, I think I do. It was when I was probably maybe 25. So I've always had a kind of interesting hairline, I would say. Even when I look back at pictures of me as a kid, I've kind of got... I don't have the lines that go straight up from kind of around my ears.
He's pointing for
I'm
those
pointing.
For those of you who are not creeping on my webcam that's hidden somewhere. He's pointing to his temples.
So around the areas of, I don't know how you would describe this part of my head, directly above the eyes and to the right and the
I
left.
think that's called the five head in your case.
Okay. Yeah, so some people have a 4-head. I've got a 5-head at the moment, unfortunately. But I've always had this funny hairline. And I remember seeing a picture of myself that someone else took. And I thought, wait a minute, what's going on there? And I had to do a double take and zoom in on the picture. And I thought, holy shit, I'm getting bald. I'm losing hair. Because even though I haven't had that great hairline my whole life, I noticed that there was significantly less hair up there than there used to be. So that's the moment I thought, shit, I'm actually getting old. Because up until that point, I had never ever felt the effects of aging. I didn't feel tired. My body wasn't sore. I didn't notice any visible signs of aging, with the exception of that hair loss. So, I don't know. That moment for me was pretty scary.
Yeah, I could see that. Although I think you're being hard on yourself, because I think your hairline is just fine. You have quite a few grays popping up, but I mean, if I had to choose between being a silver fox or, you know, a bald guy, I'd way rather be a silver fox.
You know, I'm lucky in that way because the wife likes the silver fox look. or the salt and pepper look. I quite like it as well, so that's always good.
Makes you distinguished.
But what I've always said was I'll just be happy if I can keep my hair.
Yeah, I think that's like kind of the baseline for happiness as a man. Sorry, all you bald guys out there. Just kidding. I'm losing my hair too. I've kind of got the opposite experience as you, because I started out the ugly, funny-looking kid, and I always had shitty, curly, thin, wiry hair, and it was always thin, so I just assumed I'd be bald by the time I was 20, and I still have hair, which is good. And I actually did kind of a Benjamin Button thing, where I looked like I was... I guess Benjamin Button's not the right thing.
If Benjamin Button started off as the biggest nerd you've ever seen.
Yeah, I was a big nerd. Yeah. It was not a good look. I was even a goth kid at one point. It was not a good look. But, fortunately, I have experienced a bit of an aesthetic renaissance, you might say. Some have said I have long bottomed, which I think is a shout out to Harry Potter's Neville Longbottom, who started out in the series as a funny looking kid but grew up into be a reasonably regular, perhaps even some would say gorgeous looking man.
Well, I wouldn't say gorgeous. But,
I don't know.
but that is a good term.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, I had to Google it.
So I absolutely have not long bottomed. My best days are 100% behind me, unfortunately. In terms of feeling and looking young. I, in the last few years, have had a ridiculous amount of injuries. Mm-hmm. I had no injuries in my life up until my early 20s.
Right.
I'm now the ripe old age of 32 in April. So getting on a bit, definitely on the downslide.
Are you, though?
Well, I think I am. Because I look back at pictures of myself, and usually, up until a certain point in my life, I would look back at pictures of myself and think, can't believe I used to look like that.
Timepiece.
No, the opposite. I was much happier with how I looked at that moment than I was when I looked back at pictures of myself years before. Because I had been, been able to grow facial hair, or finally in a place where I was semi-happy with my physique and that sort of stuff. I've been living in Canada, so I had a better tan.
Right. It's well known that the sun does not shine in Scotland. Tans are usually applied via a spray bottle.
Yeah. Injections, pills.
Ew. Beta
which
carotene.
we'll get on to later, because
we can touch on that.
We could definitely talk about ways to enhance your looks and make you look younger than you actually are.
Right.
Courtney Cox.
Oh, shots fired. Here's the thing, though, dude. I know you look at yourself and you think like, shit, I'm on the decline, I'm on the downslide. But I've heard, and this is all like word of mouth, I've heard anecdotally that women tend to agree that men, a lot of guys anyway, age relatively well. I mean, not all of us are going to look like George Clooney or Brad Pitt, but even dudes like Ricky Gervais look, they look reasonably good still as they get on. I think you touched on a good point with the injuries. Lifestyle comes into effect, right? And I think a lot of times, like, you get older, you get married, maybe you have a couple of kids, and suddenly your priorities shift from like me, myself, and I to I am now the breadwinner and I work real hard, and then I come home and I raise my kids, and I don't care about sports, and I don't care about eating right, and I don't care about exercise, and I can't sleep because I've got parasitic children who won't shut the fuck up.
Ouch.
I don't know what it's like to have a kid. This is just all my assumptions. But anyway, like, you don't maintain, and if you don't use it, you lose it, right? It's atrophy. So, don't smoke, don't drink hard, use sunscreen,
I do all of those things.
Well, there you go.
And I'm still getting old and ugly.
Yeah, you're not getting ugly.
But I would agree with most of what you said there. I think, yes, men probably generally tend to age better than women of the equivalent age.
Perhaps.
But I think for me, I have already passed the point of the best I will look. I don't think I'm ever going to look... No, that sounds so fucking vain.
But
I was gorgeous before!
but this is all subjective, right?
It's subject. Well, yes, it's subjective, but I am the subject.
But beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And
Right.
I've seen many women behold you with their eyes. And sometimes with their hands, but we won't tell your fiance about that. Hey, yo! So yeah, like, nothing you can do about it. You're gonna get older. You're gonna age. And it's just reality. It's been the reality for every man and woman who ever walked this earth, and will continue to be a reality up until science invents a way of, stopping the aging process. And we're pretty close from what I've seen. I don't know how much you know about genetics, but telomeres
Loads.
are loads.
Loads.
Just big time.
I won't go on about it right now, but I know loads. Just know that I know loads.
Yeah. These things called telomeres, which are like the plastic tips on the end of your shoelaces, they are at the end of your DNA, right? And every time your DNA splits, those telomeres get shorter. But the telomeres serve as basically the things that protect your genetic integrity. And as we age and as our cells divide, those telomeres get a little bit shorter with each division of the DNA. And there's work within the scientific community to try and either prevent the deterioration of the telomeres, or regenerate them, or maybe even loop the DNA back into itself so that it's sort of an endless circle. And that brings up all kinds of interesting quandaries, because if we can lengthen the lifespan of human beings, what does that do for the world, right? Like our carbon footprint suddenly, the workforce doesn't retire at 65. The workforce retires at 165. And if the millennials are complaining they can't get a job now, shit. You know what I mean? But and by the way, they have done these tests so far in mice, and
I did read this.
Yeah.
It's someone, or a team out of Australia, like New South Wales or something, from what I remember.
Yeah. They've increased the lifespan of mice. You've also got these technologies like CRISPR, Cas9.
Unbelievable.
Crazy stuff.
You want a kid with blue eyes? Okay. Nuts.
And just in fact, like a week ago, they used CRISPR for the first time on a human trial.
Oh.
Yeah, some guy with like a genetic defect, and it was causing all kinds of problems. He volunteered himself to be the human guinea pig for this. So it'll be really interesting to see, if they can reverse some of the damage done at the genetic level. I forget what his affliction is. We could Google it, or you at home could Google it. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if there's side effects, right? Because one of the concerns is cancer, which is an age-specific disease. As our DNA splits and our cells divide, more and more mutations happen within the genetic code, and sometimes the mutations go haywire and the cells refuse to die, and they just grow and grow and grow, and that's how you get various forms of cancer. So that's a concern with aging, certainly, but as well, it's a concern with the things we're doing to try and lengthen lifespan. Are we also introducing a vast new array of potential cancers? And with CRISPR, what are we doing to our genetic code? Yeah, you can give your kids blue eyes. You can give yourself blue eyes. But are you going to give yourself some kind of a crazy defect somewhere else?
Yeah. Where does it end?
Yeah.
I mean, body modifications are already fairly extreme, or there are extreme options. So if this was to be allowed at some point, where does it end?
Right.
How old do we go? What kind of modifications shouldn't take place?
Mm-hmm. And these are just some of the really high-end scientific cutting-edge things to try and work on aging. But I mean, I can walk across the street right now and get Botox, and that's sort of an anti-aging remedy too.
Temporary.
Right?
Here's a question: would you ever?
Absolutely. In fact, I am considering doing it pretty soon.
Where?
Forehead, 5 head.
Forehead? Your forehead's not even bad.
I have little lines.
Let
I'm
me
getting
tell you.
crow's feet.
Yeah,
It's a problem.
well, that's the next step for me, because you're a couple of years older than me, so I'll get there pretty soon. I have a funny story about foreheads. I was in California probably 2 years ago now, maybe 3, and we had gone on this wine tasting tour in Temecula on this party bus, having the best day. It was 30 odd degrees outside, Celsius, and we got home to where we were staying that night, and I looked in the mirror, and I was so shocked to see that I had these 3 giant lines on my forehead that I swore I had never had before. And I think what had happened was I had always had the forehead lines, at least for the preceding years, maybe the 3 or 4 years before. And what had happened was that the sun had burned my skin where the lines were.
Right.
But then when I kind of smiled, is it a smile or a frown? Frowned. Yeah, when I frowned, the lines opened up because they're essentially little cracks in the skin.
So you heard it here, folks. Don't frown and you won't get aging lines. So
Yeah.
go on.
So, no, actually the opposite, because when you frown, your forehead straightens.
Oh, so frown lines.
Frown all the time. Don't
Guys, stop
ever
asking
smile.
women to smile. It's just aging them
Yeah.
faster.
Yeah, and it's offensive.
It's offensive to women.
So, I had these burn marks where the lines existed, but then zero sun was able to get in between the lines.
So they were lighter than
It's
everything.
like red lines with a white line in between when I frowned. But yeah, that was when I realised I had forehead wrinkles. But
Right.
I can understand why people would get Botox. The only issue is the cost.
Yeah, it's like $500, $600 every time you get a treatment, and you might have to get a treatment 2 or 3 times a year, right?
So it lasts for a couple of months at a time.
Yeah, and your body gets used to it after a while because it's a toxin. So the first time is probably going to be the most effective, and then like within probably, and I'm spitballing here. I could be completely out to lunch, but within a few years, it's probably fairly ineffective, or you're going to need to keep upping the dose to the point where it's
like
cost prohibitive.
Heroin for the forehead.
Yeah, but all the same, and I know this makes me sound like a vain asshole, but I'm gonna do it because if I can buy myself an extra 4 years of, do you ever play the you meet people and you ask them like, how old do you think I am? Do you ever play that game?
No, because I don't want to know their answer.
Okay, well, I like this game because it
goes
always
well
works
for you.
It works
Yeah.
well for me. I always get like 26. This 18-year-old girl the other day gave me her phone number because she thought I was good looking, and I'm like, dude, I'm old. Like, I'm not old enough.
I'm almost old enough.
Almost
to be
old enough to be your dad. I'm definitely old enough to be your creepy uncle. Yeah, she was hot.
So you've looked into Botox, clearly. Now,
I have, yeah. I got a friend who works at a clinic up in Edmonton who, among other things, does the Botox stuff. So I asked her, like, what kind of ballpark prices am I looking at? And yeah, she kind of broke it down for me.
would you consider anything else? What else have we got? What are the other options here?
Botox is probably like the most extreme thing I would ever go with. I don't
Plastic
know.
surgery.
You can hear that I'm struggling to breathe out of one side of my nose, right? I need to get my nose fixed anyway. I'm probably going to be like, dude, if you're going in there anyway, just give me a rhinoplasty. But as we've previously established, I'm as vain as could be because I grew up the funny looking ugly kid and didn't really like come into a point where women would actually look at me as someone they would want to go home with until, fairly recently. So I want to ride this wave while I got
That's
it.
fair.
I'm
I'm drowning.
But
I'm not riding that wave anymore.
but you're not. You're not. I think you're hard on yourself.
So, before the podcast, I'll sometimes write some notes just so that I can remember what to talk about. Because as we've established, I'm old and my memory's going. And had written the words high school here. Now, I'm not a big user of Facebook, but occasionally I'll get this kind of urge to go and have a look at people that I went to high school with.
Gotta do the creep.
I do the creep just once in a while, maybe every couple of months.
That's actually pretty. Maybe that's
Couple
not
of months?
frequently. Is
That's
that
not frequently? Not in today's day and age. No.
maybe not.
Let's say it's nighttime, just before bed.
You're trying to get to sleep.
Yeah,
and you can't.
that's-
Your brain suddenly thinks about someone you haven't even thought of in a decade.
Exactly. That's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
So I'll start the chain of clicks, and I'll end up looking at pictures of these people that I haven't seen in maybe, I don't know, over 10 years.
Right.
Even more than that. God, I'm really old now. Anyway, there are people I went to high school with, and if we played that game that you mentioned earlier, guess what age I am?
Right.
You would absolutely say at least 40 for
Yeah.
some of them.
And we kind of did play that game a little bit because you showed me these pictures. And okay, first of all, if you have a 5 head, they got an infinite forehead. Several of those gentlemen have an infinite forehead, as in no hairline whatsoever. So you're already beating them on that front.
Yeah.
Some of them look like they've done some hard living,
Yeah, it's a shame. So, I mean, I'm beating myself up, but when I compare myself to these people, holy moly. And that's not everyone I went to high school with, and I'm not naming any names.
No, certainly not. They could be listening. They could be fans.
I am definitely blown away when I look at other people's images.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Did you have like a high school reunion or anything?
No, and I really wish that we did. It's not that I didn't go, no one organised one.
That's a shame.
And it is a shame, because I would really have liked to go to that.
I went to mine, and I wasn't sure what to expect, but I am so glad that I went.
Now, were you a dime piece when you went back, or did that happen after?
It was around the time I wouldn't ever.
So people
call
were
myself-
like, "Damn, Alan, is that you?
Well, first of all, I need to correct
gorgeous!"
you.
Because apparently you went to school in the southern states.
Apparently, well, I did though, but
You did, no?
it was a different high school. No, and I wouldn't ever call myself a dime piece, but it was right around the time I started to realize that, hey, I don't look funny anymore. And I walked in there, and people actually didn't recognize me.
That's right.
Some of them didn't remember me, which is even funnier because,
Not only was he ugly, but it was forgettable.
yeah, I had walked through the hallways. No pals. What do you call it in Scotland?
Nigel Naples.
Nigel Naples, that's me. Yeah, so I showed up and I looked good and I felt good and I kind of just went to see, like, all right, which one of you cretins ended up in jail, who got knocked up with, like,
But isn't that what Facebook's for?
yeah, but half the names I couldn't remember. It's just one of those things. You want to see it too. Facebook, you take like 20 selfies, you post the one that doesn't make you look completely terrible. No, this is real life, in real life lighting scenarios. And yeah, I left feeling pretty good about myself and my situation because, the dudes who... You see a lot of guys who peak in high school and then it's just a sheer drop off and you kind of wonder like, wow, yeah.
So the lesson is always creep on Facebook because there is someone who has aged far less gracefully than you.
Yes, if you're feeling bad about yourself, before you go and book an appointment for Botox, creep your old classmates.
So this talk about high school is reminding me of something. There's this moment that has taken place, or a series of moments, where I realised that an authoritarian figure in my life is a real person. Have you ever experienced that?
Like you run into an old teacher at a grocery
Not even
store.
run into them, but yeah, maybe in that case, but a parent or an uncle or an old teacher or someone in your life that had power over you that was significantly older than you. When you were younger, that person knew it all. They had all the answers. and what they said went.
Right.
They were the boss at that particular moment. And you just never ever considered that they might have a life outside of wherever you were at that moment. So I remember seeing a teacher outside of school, for example, doing the shopping, thinking, why is she in a supermarket?
Teachers don't.
Teachers don't need food.
They get apples.
But you know what I mean? And it was the same for my parents. When you get as you get older, you start having conversations with your parents that you would never have had as a kid.
And you realize how wrong they are about some things?
I realised how right they were about some things.
Oh.
And thinking back about the kind of money that my parents earned, for example, and thinking, how on earth did they support a family of 6? Or the fact that they might like or dislike something, or they have hobbies, or that they have opinions on things. And I'm not just talking about things that relate to you, but they have a life. And that, to me, is a very scary thought, that the whole time that I was alive up until that point, it had never even crossed my mind that they had a life outside of their interactions with me.
Right.
Did you ever have that?
Yeah, kind of. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I definitely have had that sensation before. I guess growing up, and like I've lived in the same basic community here and there. I've seen the same people throughout my life kind of pop in and out, and you see them. I've seen teachers in the context of shopping malls. I've seen, and I'm friends with some of my old teachers on Facebook now, which is, it's kind of funny to see them voicing political opinions that they probably wouldn't have voiced in school.
I just remembered something that's quite funny.
Oh.
A teacher that used to work at my school after I left high school, speaking of realising that they have a life outside of school, either went to jail or lost his job for glassing someone in the face in a pub.
Jeez.
Scotland, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. I remember the first time I hooked up with a girl who was a teacher, and I thought to myself, this is kind of hot because she's like Miss So-and-so to a class full of students who, maybe the little boys have crushes on her. And there's Alan getting the smash.
Oh, that's good. That's really good. So I know that a lot of people talk about aging. Mm-hmm. Throughout your life, you know that you're going to get older.
Yeah.
You've seen people around you get older.
You see people lament about it all the time.
I know. But I still don't think that was sufficient warning for me. I feel like it somehow snuck up on me.
That's the thing, though. Like, you always, when you're young, even right now, if we look at 60, we think, oh, that's a milestone I'll hit someday. Mm-hmm. But you fail to realize it's a gradual, every day you're inching closer to 60. It's not like one day you wake up and you're fucking 60. You get there decade after decade, experience after experience. You're about to get married. Mm-hmm. How weird is that? Maybe not to you today, present day, Chris. Like, oh yeah, I'm getting married. I'm going to plan my wedding, blah, blah, blah. But like 10 years ago, Chris, if you had told yourself, like went back in time,
yeah, that's true.
I'm getting married.
And I can think of moments 10 years ago and it doesn't feel like 10 years ago. So they say that when you reach maybe 21, life speeds up.
Yeah.
I've heard that one over and over again. And I could attest to that. The last 10 years of my life are like a blur.
Mm-hmm. Maybe that's because when we were in school, we measured time by what grade you were in or what year you were in, and you had a summer break and all of that stuff. I feel like, the same thing. Like, time accelerates so much faster outside of the context of school, because like in the workplace, day after day after day, you book your own vacation when you can take it. It's not like there are preset milestones on the calendar that you hit. Maybe that's just the way my mind kind of perceives time and space and reality. Yeah.
I think that we are now in this place, I know that I feel this way, where I am no longer the young guy. I feel like every place that I've ever worked and everything that I've ever done, I've always been one of the young people.
Right.
I've always considered myself as part of the young crowd. When I watch sports, I was always hopeful that maybe one day I could be one of those people because they were all older than me, all the people on the pitch or in the ring or whatever sport I happened to be. So I always thought that I had my whole life ahead of me, so to speak, and that I could still do anything with my life.
Right.
That's absolutely not the case now. I couldn't join the army. I'm already past most professional athletes' prime.
A lot of professional athletes at this age are starting to retire, which is wacky.
That really is shocking. So from that perspective, I'm absolutely not a young guy anymore.
Sure. But I think you're also looking at it from the wrong perspective. Because
The glass half old.
the glass of, scotch is better when it's old.
That is true. There are some benefits to being older.
Yeah.
Bus passes.
Cheaper liver and onions at Denny's on the seniors menu. But you're a designer or a web guy, a web specialist by vocation. It's not like your skills have an expiration date necessarily, right?
Now, it's an interesting one because, no, I agree with that. But I remember when I was younger, I was so interested in the latest and greatest technologies. I wanted the best new phone. I wanted the best new computer. I once used to build computers, and that was a hobby of mine. I loved it. I'm making fun of you for being a nerd. But
I call guys like you for help with my computers.
Yeah. Now I do not give a shit. I remember I used to spend so much time organising the folders on my computer or downloading a really cool desktop background or downloading like custom apps and things like that. Now I really couldn't care less. So that concerns me a little bit because, yes, I know what I know and I've got years of experience in my field.
Right.
But when it comes to new technologies, I feel like kids 10 years younger than me and more have such a leg up on that, a head start.
Yeah. I tell people this all the time. People our age or around that age bracket who are like self-professed Luddites who don't understand technology, you have to get in right now because technology is going to like leaps and bounds every year. If you can't figure out how to use a computer today, you're already fucked for tomorrow. You know what I mean? So yes, I see your point, but I would also suggest maybe you just have other interests now. So you have other things going on where, you don't want to tinker with the latest graphics card and the latest gaming computer.
I'd rather spend more time enjoying it.
Yeah.
Enjoying the device for what it was used for rather than customizing things. So when you're younger, there are so many more options available to you, so many more avenues that you can go down. And I'm feeling a little bit these days like I'm kind of limited to where I can go and what I can do. Yeah. Not to say that I'm unhappy and I want to change paths, but it's kind of nice knowing that you can if you want to.
Yep. For sure. And you see that a lot with people like my dad's age, who my dad worked in the oil business for his whole life, and that's all he knows. He's basically at retirement age. I mean, he could retire, and he continues to work, and he gets different contracts here and there or whatever. But like, I wonder what that's going to be like when I'm in my 60s. If I want to continue working, what options am I going to have available? It's scary. Aging is scary. The future is scary. The unknown is scary. The fact that nature's working against your body is fucking terrifying. Because there's jack shit you can do about it besides potentially messing with your entire genetic makeup and or getting botulism injected into your face. But okay, I'm going to name drop here. Guys like Cameron Hanes. Do you know who he is?
Do I?
Well, for those who don't, Cameron Hanes is a 50-year-old, basically semi-professional hunter or whatever. He runs 200-mile super ultra marathons. Just unbelievable. I follow this dude on Instagram, and he's constantly training in the gym. The guy, if he took off his shirt, he would put most men, half his age to shame. The guy.
That reminds me, we talked about Botox and other body enhancements. Didn't even
TRT?
mention TRT.
TRT.
So
Absolutely.
you're up for a bit of Botox.
Yeah, I would absolutely do TRT.
What's stopping you? You're already probably past the age limit.
Nah. I had my testosterone levels checked a couple of years ago and they were fine.
So would you say that in general you are of the opinion that if you can hold on to your youth, do it by whatever means necessary?
Yeah, I am. Cause
as long as you don't hurt people around you,
Yeah,
and you're not damaging
for sure.
your heart or anything too serious.
Yeah, I mean, I would not. I think the medical professional community is a community to look up to in terms of I wouldn't take testosterone replacement therapy from a guy at the gym, right? Unless that guy at the gym happened to have a PhD and knew what he was talking about. Because I would rather, if you start messing with your hormones, your endocrine system goes out of whack. And you see it all the time with like MMA athletes, right? Vitor Belfort.
Mm-hmm.
He was on TRT from the early days, back when he made plenty of natural testosterone, and it fucked with his endocrine system so much that now that he's off of it, because USADA tests for that, he's just a different fighter. I don't know that he can produce enough testosterone on his own.
Yeah, I'm always really wary of doing anything that your body wasn't naturally supposed to do.
Yeah, but testosterone is natural.
Yeah, but you're enhancing it to a point where your body would never ever be able to produce that much.
Well, they were.
Yeah.
Responsible use of TRT basically keeps you at the level of testosterone that someone in their 20s would have.
Right.
And that's something, again, that I've looked into, that if you're in your 60s, testosterone is... you should be on testosterone replacement therapy because it helps with longevity. Your bone density is higher. Again, recovery time is lessened for everything. You see old people get out of bed and they're like, "Oh, I pulled my back." Like, would that have happened if you were on TRT? Maybe not though.
So, is there an equivalent then for women? Because
it's different, right? Because women have the menopause thing, but I know that postmenopausal women who have osteoporosis, for example, sometimes they're treated with low doses of testosterone because it increases bone density. But I don't know enough
and gives
about...
them a beard.
And potentially. Oh, dude, I saw a lady yesterday with a sweet beard. It was longer than mine. Not that I have a long one, but
Was it patchy?
it was like a billy goat. She looked like a billy goat.
Oh.
It was actually really sad, and it was really sad. Shouldn't make fun, but all I'm saying is, shave that. Come on. Who's letting this poor woman walk around with a billy goat beard? So there you have it. We are afraid of getting old, and we are willing to throw money at our problems and potentially put our bodies out on the offering block for genetic alterations. So scientists, if you're out there, you want some human guinea pigs, couple of 1-2 cutie pies over here who want to remain that way? I don't know. Let's switch lanes here, Chris. You
Recommendations?
Yeah, let's do recommendations.
I have one for this week.
Oh, okay.
If you follow me on the social medias, you've probably seen it already, but it's a movie called Coco. Coco, it is Disney, I think it's Pixar, Disney Pixar's latest release. It's about a young boy in Mexico. I don't want to tell you too much because I went into the movie not knowing anything.
Right.
I didn't even watch the trailer beforehand, so I'm glad that I didn't, so you probably shouldn't either. But it's a lot of fun. The visuals are unbelievable. In some scenes, I am not sure what is real and what is animated. And it isn't one of those kind of real life / animated combos. So it's just that some of the animated stuff looks so real that it you could swear that it was taken on a camera in a real life
Right.
scenario. Anyway, the music's great. It's just an all-round brilliant movie. It's funny.
Gives Frozen a run for its
Heartwarming.
money.
I much preferred it to Frozen.
Okay, wow. You heard it here first, folks.
And interestingly, before the movie started, there was a 20-minute Frozen mini movie.
Oh, wow.
It's like Olaf's Return or something it's called.
Interesting.
But it's very Olaf-centric, but really funny.
Okay. Coco.
Yeah, so that's my recommendation. What do you have?
Well, as you know, I'm a fan of the distilled spirits.
Not another whiskey!
Yeah, another whiskey. That's how you can tell I'm old. Because
Maybe that's why you're old.
maybe.
Knocking back those every night.
I don't drink it often. In fact, I am just about done. I gave up booze, ladies and gentlemen. I gave up booze for 40 days. And it has... What's today's date? I think I have...
27th.
I have 3 more days left until my self-imposed alcohol hiatus is over. I gave it up for no good reason in particular. It's not like I'm an alcoholic or whatever. I just took it upon myself to try and abstain for 40 days for shits and giggles. And no giggles were had. It was terrible.
I did warn him. I told him it was utterly pointless and he was going to prove nothing.
Yeah, all I proved was that I have the willpower to say no to
Myself.
perfectly good scotch. Yeah, to myself mostly, and people who are offering me booze. But anyway, Maker's Mark is a really good bourbon that I think everyone should try.
Is this the Canadian one?
No, bourbon is an American beverage from the
Is that-
state of Kentucky.
Okay, and that's the same as whiskey or champagne or... That has to be from that region to
Yeah.
be called that.
Yeah, so legal definition for bourbon is that it has to come from the state of Kentucky, and there's some other things like it's got to be made using brand new charred oak barrels and blah blah blah.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, it's I won't nerd out too much. Suffice it to say that if you don't really know how you feel about whiskey and bourbon in particular, Maker's Mark is a good one to start with because it's actually got a pretty sweet flavor profile, and that's one of the reasons I like it a lot. It smells almost like cherry on the nose when you nose the glass, and oh, now my mouth is watering. I just want some so bad. But a really sweet palate because it's got a really high content of corn in it as the grain, the key grain. So Maker's Mark, drink it up and drink wisely. And I'm not sponsored by anyone. I'm just telling you how I feel about this delicious distilled beverage.
Okay. So that was the recommendations for this week. What kind of fun adventures can they expect from the following weeks? I know that we are working on a bit of a brand right now.
Yep.
You have done some really nice logo designs and you're working on some video stuff.
Yeah, just some fun to be had, I guess. Playing with 80s kind of look and feel for no reason other than I think we were born in the 80s and it's kind of a cool aesthetic. Stranger Things is big right now and we might as well capitalize on that whole bandwagon, right?
Yeah.
Am I right?
No left.
And so, yeah, look for that to launch. We're also looking at getting a few social media accounts, maybe a Twitter, a Facebook, a YouTube, an Instagram.
Yeah, and I think that if this thing goes well, which it obviously is going to do,
it's going to do
there's no doubt there, we're going to hopefully progress towards a video podcast.
Could be
Is
in the
that-
cards.
A Vcast, is that a thing? Did I just make that up? Because you got blogs and you got vlogs.
We could Twitch
You got
it.
a podcast.
We could stream it
Do you
on
have
Twitch.
a vlogcast?
A vlogcast?
No, that's too.
I don't know.
That's not a thing.
That's not a thing. We could make it a
So
thing.
yeah, I think maybe in a few months' time, I've got a decent camera. We'll set something up and we'll have a video podcast going. That has been a request of a few people that have listened so far.
It's because we sound so good looking. But
Yeah, and we've just spent a full podcast talking about how you've gone from geek to hunk. People are just desperate to see. You know they're creeping you as we speak.
They're going to be disappointed. They're going to be like, if that's what he ended up with, I would hate to see where he started from.